All right, and we are live. How's that sunlight? Let's see, let's adjust that just a little bit. There we go. Good morning, everybody. This is just firing up the camera. This is the pre-game session as I just get things set up for my book reading. And let me just have a moment here to establish a few things. Let me see if I can send out a link. Hey, Jonathan. See if I can figure this out. Bear with me, we're about 5 minutes early. See if I can find this on my YouTube channel. How's the audio? Can you hear me all right, Jonathan? Oh, hey, there it is. Good, I found it. Okay, let me bring this up here and let me share it on out to all the appropriate venues. Oh, I'm sorry. Sounds perfect. Great. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for letting me know. Let me bring that up. Great. Okay, let me just type up on this thing to send this over. My morning, no, it's not my morning. My book reading is beginning in 5 minutes. Come join me now in the green room. Okay. And I'll share that out. Post that to Flickr. Isn't this amazing the way this stuff works? Then send this over to Twitter. In the green room. I crack myself up. Okay, can I send that to Tumblr too? Why not, right? Post to Tumblr, there you go. I don't know where it posted to on Tumblr, but there we go. Okay, that's good. Let me see if I can bring this up in such a way now that I can see I can see the chat. Let's see if I can bring this up in 2 separate windows. Can I break the chat out separately? Pop out chat. Look at that. And then I can put the book on the other thing. Well, what do you know? Look at that. I've got that set up and that set up. I wonder if I move this over just a little further, give a little more real estate. There, I think that's good. All right, let's see if that message went through to Facebook. Excuse me, while I pretty up. I mean, join. Yeah, so silly. Okay, how's my makeup? My mascara running? Okay, we're 3 minutes away. So actually I'm doing this a little bit differently. I'm in the same place at the Marriott Hotel. Oh, cute as always. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'm here at the Marriott Hotel, which is across the street from where I live, which is very convenient, especially this early in the morning. There's nobody here. I'll show you around. Like that. So I'm just out here in the courtyard by the pool. It's funny, they got 2 Marriotts in a row. There's a Marriott courtyard right there, and then this is the proper Marriott itself right here. And you can see I've got the place to myself. Very, very nice. And I live just across the street, right over there, the building right there. This is very, very convenient. I come over here all the time to work, and I work typically, come on, let's go have a look over here. I typically work in here. Sometimes I'll work out here. Sit on that sofa right there. So the Starbucks is right over there. So I'll come over, I'll walk across the street, get my coffee, and then sit over here. It's a good arrangement. Kind of allows me to break things up. They've got good Wi-Fi. This building's only been in operation for a little more than a year. When we moved across the street, it was they're finishing construction. So I've been coming over here ever since. Okay, how are we doing on time? 1 minute, start. That music isn't coming through too bad. Jonathan, are you able to hear the music when I'm sitting here? Oh, there's 7 of you there. Anybody else? Can you hear that jazzy jazz? How do you do that? Oh, there it is. Good afternoon from South Devon, England. Hello, Amy Ducky 9. Anime Ducky 9. Hi. Wow, England. I love it. Oh no, the stream is lagging. Oh, that's probably because I was up and walking around. That'll do that. What a beautiful place. The music from outside? Yeah. I was wondering if it was coming through very much. Glad it wasn't. Okay, so here we go, guys. It is 6:30. Time to start this. So this particular reading, and if I've got this up, then I can see the chat also. Just a second. This particular, oh, I can see that over there. Yeah, just like the car's driving too. Okay, good. So you can hear that too? Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so this particular reading is for the Path of Wildness chapter, which is it's the 3rd chapter. I don't have any book today. I gave them all away. And so I have to read off the computer screen. It's a dilemma I've had lately, not having copies. I'm kind of in a lag zone right now between editions. I'm adding 2 new sections to the book at a suggestion from a friend. One of them is going to be a glossary that I'm calling the cast, and that's going to go up front just after the introduction, and it introduces all the characters and places in the book, things like the desert killer, the muse, places like the Deepwater Wilderness. I just bought your book for my boyfriend's birthday. He loves what? Oh, I hit the report button. No. Sorry, I think I corrected that. He loves going on long solo walks in the British countryside, so I thought it would be perfect for him. I've been a fan since your Japan days. Thank you very much, Anime Ducky. I appreciate it, and I hope your boyfriend likes the book. So the introduction section, of course, is a proper introduction. And then what the book does right now is it jumps right in with a very almost inflammatory chapter called My Muse is a Corpse. Which I really struggled with, and that's the chapter that I was reading from last time. That really is like just jumping into the deep end of the pool of the thing. And so a friend of mine who read the book had a suggestion to add a glossary to the beginning that kind of introduces the characters and the places within the book, because all of Going Alone basically takes place within a setting in the desert. There's Siberia Ghost Town, which is quite remote in the middle of nowhere, and then about a 1-hour walk from Siberia straight out into the desert to the north leads you into the edge of what I call the Deepwater Wilderness. Now, nearly all the names are made up. This is all fiction laid upon geography, if you like, and geology. And then within that enormous wilderness area, which is the cover of the book, that's what you see on the cover, that is the Deepwater Wilderness and beyond. And there's places and things that are out there that happen and play a role in the book. Not completely. A lot of this book, like the chapter I'm about to read, or part of the chapter I'm about to read, took place in Japan. So this new section I'm adding, the glossary or cast section, actually identifies the characters within the book and the places. And then I'm going to have a short section about the riding bridge, where so much of the riding actually took place, which is a Route 66 bridge near Siberia Ghost Town, where I would retreat to from initially to get away from the heat in the summertime, to hide in the shade. But over time I began to collect items down there, like a little folding lawn chair and a tripod, and later some chalk to write on the rafters. And it became kind of a writing retreat. And I did a lot of writing down there, especially doing a lot of the writing for the new book. But put all that aside, let's get on to what I want to talk about now, which is I'm not going to read all of it, maybe just a bit of the Path of Wildness. Now there's 2 sections for nearly every chapter in the book. There's 3. There's, of course, a title for the chapter, and I'm calling them sections. There's a title for the section. There's a brief poem, that I like, that I think kind of captures the essence of that chapter or section. Then there is an explanatory section of prose. That was really the hard work of writing to kind of explain what that section is about. And then that's followed by what's called the notes from my muse. And if you're familiar with the book, the muse is that when you kind of have that inspiration that, oh, I've got something to say, and you got something I can write on, and you got to get it down. And if you don't get it out right at that moment, it won't come out. It'll be lost. And so whatever occurred to me during the time that I was writing this book that I felt belonged this particular chapter, I would then collect into that section there. So the muse writings basically were then written, and then I would think about, well, what chapter would this belong in? The going alone chapter, the path of wildness, my God is a little God, my muse is a corpse, whatever the case may be, and I would then segregate it away. And that's the result. So what I have now is I'm going to read a little bit from the path of wildness. I might stop from time to time to explain a little bit about what I meant by these sections, and then we'll proceed. Now, the writing in this particular chapter is very different. I wrote this for the most part while living in Japan. And I intended this to be a self-contained item all by itself. The Path of Wildness chapter was written as a response to the young people that were writing to me with the dilemma of their life, of wanting to live a life that wasn't just the canned, boxed, follow the ingredients life of, youth, school, career, marriage, family, retirement, death. Wanted to flavor that up in some way, but they just didn't know how to do it. And they would write to me in Japan and ask how that was done. And I kind of wrote this as an explanation. So let's get into it. Have a sip of my coffee. By the way, this was comped to me this morning when I showed up. The manager just gave it to me. Oh, and I just wanted a quick shout out to my daughter who turns 18 this morning. I gave her a hug before bed last night, and said this was my final hug to you as a child, and she'll always be my little girl, but it's a big day, so we have a day ahead of us to celebrate her 18th birthday. So my gals get up late, so I can get all this. That's one of the reasons I do this at 6:30. Oh, there, thank you, Frank. Okay, here we go. The Path of Wildness, or Mustering the Courage to Live. Here's the quote. A major breakthrough of the scientific revolution, perhaps its greatest breakthrough, was to refute the intuition that the universe is saturated with purpose. That's a quote by Steven Pinker. I thought that was very apt and appropriate for this chapter, which basically lays forward the claim that life has no inherent purpose, other than the apparent biological mandate to stay alive as long as we possibly can and to get our genes into the next generation through reproduction. Other than that, I can't find, in almost 55 years, I can't find any other apparent purpose in the universe. It doesn't seem to, like I like to say in my videos, there doesn't seem to be any description of what we're here to do written in the stars or apparent in the soils or laid out through time. And we're pretty astonished and amazed by what we see with the genetic code, the complexity of our biology. But all of these things are yielding to the inquiry of science and discovering natural causes for all of this. There doesn't seem to be any real evident mandate from heaven or above for anything else. So that's what I'm trying to lay out first of all, is that it seems like we're on our own. So that's a grave and distinct problem, because that puts the responsibility of making a worthwhile life in our own two hands. Here we go. About this section. This chapter was originally composed in Japan, and before I began going alone in earnest. I wrote The Path of Wildness in response to the many young people who contacted me during my time as a Japan-based YouTube content creator. Young people dreaming of Japan, yet unable to muster the courage or resources to make their dream real, and writing to ask me how this trick was done, and what advice I could offer to help them get away from whatever unsatisfactory life they were living. I responded with The Path of Wildness, which is a metaphor for courage and action, and a reminder of the risk of waiting too long, and a challenge and method for getting unstuck. So basically, people would write to me and say, how did you do this? How did you wind up in Japan with a family and a job and having all these adventures? And I would write back and say, there's basically a strategy, which is to recognize your dream and then work really hard to make it happen. It's not very complicated. Um, Yet I tried to get a little more poetic with it. So I came up with this path of wildness gimmick, this idea, which is imagining, a place where you're in a making a choice left and right on a thing. Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Left or right, because this is what the image that I would have when I was in the wild. I would be walking through the canyons of Japan. It was just a waiter asking me if I need anything. Walking through the canyons, and because I don't go with maps or compasses or anything, and I would be faced with a left and a right choice, and which way do I go, right? Or I don't know, especially if I was going down, because I would go up, and then I would always try to come back down a different way, cross over the mountain, and then come down a canyon the other way, and which way? Down. And sometimes I would just kind of have to assess it and say, well, okay, that looks good. It looks like there might not be a waterfall this direction. But after a while, you just kind of have to go, my gut is telling me left. And that's what I'm trying to say here. Sometimes you just have to assess what you want in life, determine what that goal is, take in all the facts, and with a reasonable amount of facts and time, if you still don't have enough empirical evidence to say one way or the other, maybe just listen to your gut a little bit. It's no guarantee it's going to work, but that is the metaphor for courage and action, and a reminder of the risk of waiting too long. Oh yeah, if you don't do it, the opportunity passes, and the person you were will no longer be. So now there's a heading for this. Okay, so there's a heading and a little section. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll read the heading, the section, and then talk about it. The next heading is called The Path of Wildness. As a solo walker myself, I always enjoyed your Japanese walking videos. Thank you, Oliver. The Path of Wildness. As I near 50, I'm becoming increasingly aware that my situation is like a man holding his breath in a sealed container of water, with less than a minute of consciousness remaining. Now is the time to scratch something meaningful on the wall to share what I have seen and learned. And now in italics and kind of left indent, a little bit of a poetic section. I'll come back to this theme over and over. It's just 5 simple lines. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. And if it looks like I'm borrowing from Japanese haiku, yeah, I am. Although I'm not very good with the 5/7, 4/7, whatever the heck, that rhythm base. I am definitely borrowing from the brevity and the punctuation and the sparsity of poets like Basho in Japan. One more time, because this basically is the essence of it all. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. What I'm basically trying to say there is that wild things tend to have the courage to go because they follow their instinct. And nature seems to move along the course of natural impulse. Organic and inorganic. That's why we have the course of a stream. It kind of just follows the course, the natural course down. Leaves blowing in the wind. A beast tracked through the brush. The beast, I used to find those in Japan, those wild boar hollows that would go through those abandoned tea fields, and I could crawl down inside, and the tracks that the wild boars would go through in the brush. They just kind of knew the way. And likewise, you and me, if we follow the direction of our first inclination. Okay, now moving back to the prose. The path of wildness is an answer and response to a prescribed way of life, which may leave some individuals with a sense that their living is little more than a series of predetermined, step-like episodes between birth and death. The stages of living between these events, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, parenthood, and senior, are themselves natural and in accord with the needs of the species and most individuals. Many find satisfaction in living this course, and to these individuals, I have little to say. Others, though, long for something more, something innate, genetic, and seemingly calling. Adventure and change can give a degree of satisfaction and relief, yet these may seem too tame and the results often only temporary. To those who feel drawn to something beyond the entertainment and stimulation of senses, I offer a walk along the path of wildness. Don't bother penciling the event into your schedule, preparing a snack with goodies and supplies, or even inviting a friend along. For this experience is along the course of your first inclination, and you must surely always go alone. So again, back to that idea of the episodes of life, right? And there's a lot of us that are fine with that. And in fact, we want nothing more. And maybe we're even a little intimidated and afraid of anything more. So we simply go along those courses. My message is for those who are interested in otherwise, right? Who are saying, you know, in this long decades, these potential 7 or 8 decades of life, what more can I add to that mix? What other ingredients can I have? And some things such as adventure and change can give a degree of satisfaction for that. But even these can seem a little bit too tame. If some of you were describing your, like Oliver, you said it as a solo walker. You may have discovered that sometimes those adventures alone aren't quite enough. There's something very satisfying to them, but maybe something more. And that's where the path of wildness can come in terms of maybe taking us to a level beyond the more pedestrian pursuits of our life, even the more sanctioned events such as adventure, something further, something deeper. Again, coming back to that theme of the universe not having an inherent purpose for us, and finding the need to create that on our own. That's the goal. Now let me go ahead and see some comments here. Happy birthday to Emily. And Jonathan says, with almost everything, your gut is right a lot of times with people and situations. Yeah, Jonathan, I found that to be the case. Sometimes it ain't. I've had lots of times in Japan that my gut has led me to go right instead of left, or vice versa, and I wind up at the edge of a waterfall, peering over the edge. And some people die as a result of those consequences. But it doesn't mean that methodology, as you know, is not sound or does not have its purpose, but it needs to be used with caution. It's because there is danger involved. Okay, let's move on down. The next heading is the problem. Life has no apparent meaning. Now this next section is a little bit wordy and kind of, you know, I'm heavily influenced by the 19th century dark romance authors, Nathaniel Hawthorne, of course, Herman Melville, and then also the Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, and the like. And I sometimes, you know, allow myself to wander deep within their writing style, which is these long paragraph level long sentences, you know, with lots of semicolons and hyphens, and this one kind of got away from me, so bear with me. Here, I'll need a sip. The heading again. The problem. Life has no apparent meaning. And this really is the crux of the whole situation, and probably the most controversial point I'll make in the book. My adventure videos on YouTube have produced a steady stream of email from people who tell me about the dreams they can't quite bring themselves to live, and their fear of being alone and feeling their lives don't matter. However, nobody ever says it that way, and instead they cloak these worries as simple life anxieties or blame their trepidation and inaction on various personal or familial infirmities and challenges. So let me just stop for a second. So, you know, I would get these emails from people who would say, I want to live a life of adventure. I have these dreams. And then I would say, well, tell me about it. And they would say, well, there's this, but then I couldn't possibly ever do that. You know, and list off the various reasons why they couldn't possibly do that. They do this to convince themselves these simple facts are the true cause of their churning worry and hesitation. So I like to think that they're doing this to say that it's this list of things that is the cause of the worry. But I had a deeper suspicion. They attempt to avoid a deeper fear, a hidden threat which is more real and threatening to a quality of life than any surface level anxiety. It's a demon of sorts, lurking in the shadows of conscious thought, peeking with knowing eyes in the direction of our mortality, pointing a crooked finger at the hazy terminal point of our life, while offering a suggestive grin that nothing will be found beyond. So that's what I think is the deeper worry, is that there's nothing beyond this. There really is no purpose in life. There is no life after death. And what the hell do you do with that? This thought, along with the weighty implication it bears that life is without inherent meaning, that's the point of the whole thing, no inherent meaning, appears to be the more real and tactile cause of the concern I sometimes read in the words of those who write to me. I never point this out, though, as I suspect they prefer I go along with their bluff and humor them with a response in keeping with their stated concern. So I don't actually say that to people. I actually, I actually imagine that they wanted just me to address their list, right? I want a life of adventure. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I want to do it, but I can't do it because there's this list. And what they want me to do is let's talk about the list, and I do. But I really think that there's this deeper concern. Reality, after all, can be a fearful thing. However, I will now attempt a more honest answer, reflective of my own life experience and sincere interactions with others. Now, bear in mind that I wrote these when I was 48, so this was like 7 years ago. Life's changed a lot since then. But I think I laid out now the proposition here. The proposition that we want something deep out of life, meaningful out of life. We want meaning out of life and some sense of purpose. And we struggle to find that in the day-to-day. We kind of cover up the problem a lot by the distractions of creating career and family and shopping and all those types of things. And we make a really good attempt at it with things like religion. But all the while, it's still lingering there, especially when we doubt our gods exist. And we may wonder, is there more? I don't think there is. I don't think there is anything after this. And thus the point of trying to do well and do good and make meaning in life in this time that we have. Here's another paragraph right here. I think this is the part where it gets a little touchy-feely. This light and living we now know offers a stark contrast to the nothingness we intuitively sense existed before our birth, and the same nothingness we fear a return to after life is done. Remember that nothingness? Remember what it was like before you were born? Neither do I. I think that's what we're headed to. In fact, this fear is far worse than a return to nothingness, as we are each capable of holding a vision of hell in our minds more terrible and real than the worst damnation preached from any austere and authoritative pulpit. Well, Kurt, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, an eternity in hell is probably far worse than an eternity of nothing, right? But still, this greater terror is our sense that the universe can get along without us, that our life and living are of little consequence in any way, and that our best efforts will account for little beyond the temporary comfort given to the handful of individuals we share and interact with, before death takes us away utterly, permanently, and forever. This is the real terror so many struggle to avoid, which reason and honest inquiry coldly reveal is true, an abject fear of ultimate insignificance and meaninglessness in the face of the curious fact of temporary life in an otherwise lifeless universe. I need a breath. Okay, so there's the whole thing right there, right? The fear that not only is life without apparent meaning, but the universe get on just fine without us. I mean, to borrow from a recent debate that I heard, which a scientist was describing, the universe, the observable universe that we see, is 1% of the known universe, and if we, these billions upon billions of galaxies and stars, if we could just eliminate that, everything you can see in the potential night sky and beyond, there would still be 99% of the universe left. It would barely touch the universe. So if there's ever any punctuation mark on the insignificance of our mere existence, that fact alone certainly does it. Now, this is in some ways, and it's a little embarrassing to read this stuff and talk about this, because it feels very sophomoric. It's like, what I mean by that is, the freshman, sophomore year of college, when you first start studying philosophy and you're exposed to these concepts and you get that nihilistic, I'm down to 20% battery, I better plug in. And you're down to, and you suddenly realize that the universe may indeed have no great scheme for you. And then you go, it's all for nothing, right? And that's kind of and you kind of get over it, right? We do. But I don't think that's necessarily a juvenile or an immature observation or thought. I think it's a very profound one, and I think it's a shame that we get over it in some ways. I think we get over it because we don't want to live with that, and so we cover it up with job, work, family, and most notably religion to make the emptiness go away, the great indifference, they call it. Let me see if I answer some questions before I go on to the next paragraph. Let's see. The Ghost of Sabotage. Hey, Ghost of Sabotage. Hey, Kurt, a longtime friend. Forever with our own thoughts. If that isn't hell, then I don't know what is. That's an interesting way to think about it. Forever with our own thoughts. I guess that would be if there was some afterlife, right? That would be interesting, especially if you got no more data, no more input, right? And you're just stuck with with what you know. I'm getting touchy and feely after that. Okay, Jonathan, keep it PG, okay? Good thing this camera's one way. Okay, let's go on. Next paragraph. I don't understand why the thought of death, real death, absolute death, with no chance of recovery, salvation, or continuation, is more tolerable to some than others. However, I suspect this acceptance may relate to some level of comfort and familiarity with being alone. Not that anyone will be alone after death, as even the concept of alone then would be wishful thinking. Nevertheless, during life, if we can abide our own company for extended periods of time, then the thought of being without others, or ourselves even, after death, may somehow become more palpable and acceptable, a more familiar, intangible something, a somewhere less feared as accepted or perhaps resigned to. To such a person, a life without absolute meaning may be acceptable. Days, months, and years of striving to no absolute end all right, and nothing to fear. To such an individual, the journey itself becomes its own purpose, the momentary satisfaction and good feelings connected with virtue their own worthy end, where virtue is defined simply as the pursuit of objective well-being for ourselves and others. A lot wrapped up in there. You know, basically the idea, I sometimes wonder, why is it that some of us seem to be all right with the idea of dying and becoming nothing, whereas others just, they don't want that, they don't accept that idea, and it's, it's almost it's almost a revolting thought. That's not the right word, but you get what I mean. Some people are like, I can't believe it, and they won't even entertain the idea. The others, like I was talking to my friend the other day, and we were talking about this very topic, and I said, you know, what about the idea of, you know, because he's a non-believer like me, of nothing after death, and you know, isn't that unsettling to you? And he basically responded. He said, well, I won't know. You know, so it'll be just like that time before death, right? So the question was, why are some people seemingly uncomfortable like that, like my friend, whereas others kind of rebel against that? And my suspicion here, not well tested or necessarily borne out, is that people who are comfortable being alone seem to be more at ease with the idea of being alone with nothing and being nothing for the eternity that will remain after death. And to such people, by extension, a life without absolute meaning could be acceptable, as long as you can find some substitute, a worthwhile substitute to fill in its place. And I suggest that substitute here with the life of meaning, of virtue, where I define virtue as the improvement of well-being for as many as possible. Okay, death then offers no transition, but is seen as a simple final stop, a period and ending of effort, and of striving, and of reflection towards understanding, which yields nothing more than the transitory and ultimately meaningless gain to ourselves and those to follow. But is this a bad thing? If yes, then it's understandable that many protest, recoil, and fly from such thoughts. So death is all right, because the end in itself is the virtuous life. And I'm suggesting then to some that's not enough, that's not okay, and that's why they say no. Whereas for others, somebody like me, for example, I would say that end is enough. If I've lived a virtuous day, then it is a good time to die. That is sufficient. And I haven't yet really given examples or good definition of virtue, but that's coming. Maybe not in this video, though. And I said that, okay, but if no, then our breathing can relax and we can measure each inhalation as one of the few we get. Okay, if we're not upset or rebelling against that idea that a life of without meaning, inherent meaning. If no, then our breathing can relax and we can measure each inhalation as one of the few we get and use the fuel of living to move our body and activate our brain in such a way as to create our own meaning in these passing moments and to pursue objective goodness in the willful expression of perceived best ends. I was dancing away as the staff were coming by, so I kind of lost track of what I was saying there. The idea is that if we're okay with this, then we can breathe easy and find satisfaction in the purposeful movement and choices and events throughout the day, as insignificant as they may be, as long as they're in the pursuit of virtue. To pursue the objective goodness in the willful expression of perceived best ends. Okay, I'm gonna stop for a second and see what the comments are. Speaking of death, this is the ghost of Saboteur. Speaking of death, how is life for you, Kurt? Life's good, best it's ever been. Every decade just keeps getting better. I'm sure that'll stop soon. You know, that's a, you know, it's a bell-shaped curve, right? I am on the other end. It's going downhill fast. Accepting suffering, I think. Yes, Jonathan, and not becoming corrupt. Yeah, that's important. Afterlife or nit, it'd be fun finding out. You know, well, maybe if we're on the wrong side of that, right? What some people view the afterlife to be, it won't be that fun. But I see what you mean. Yeah, I will enjoy fun. I hope there's something more to discover. Oliver says, nothing after death is a scary thought, though. I can't even grasp the idea of death being blank sleep with no more existence of time and whatnot. For me, Oliver, I just imagine what it was like before I was alive, right? I think that's just what it's going to be again. I made it to the live reading. Hello, Jelena. Is that my friend in Kansas? And I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry, I had a hard time pronouncing your name. And Jonathan says, I have a feeling Kurt is an A-star dancer in his private life. Yeah, it's starting to get some activity around the hotel. People are meandering around. Little boy just walked past. He looked at me like this. He kind of came, looked at the pool, and then turned around and off he went. Okay, let's continue a little further. How are we doing? We're in half an hour in, so I think I'm going to go a few more into this. How's the battery doing? About halfway. Not too much longer. Next chapter, next paragraph. So what words can I say to those who write to me asking my thoughts regarding their worthy dilemmas? That worthy dilemmas are, you know, I'm 23 years old, I've just finished college, I want a life of adventure, but I got this list. That's the dilemma. When my suspicion tells me their real concern is actually a fear of their own unimportance and the utter finality of death. So I got this dilemma. They're writing to me, they're telling me about their list, but I'm thinking, I think you've got a deeper issue. You know, who am I? Professor Kurt, right? You know, I don't know. What do I know? So I don't say that stuff. So instead I wrote this instead. When my suspicion tells me their real concern is actually a fear of their own unimportance and the utter finality of death. In most cases, I will engage their most direct questions and give the best answer and suggestion I can. The list. I can, given my untrained and uncredentialed qualifications. Excuse me. I wish, though, that I could speak to them more plainly and tell them, pardon me, goodness gracious, it's not even caffeinated mocha. I wish, though, that I could speak to them more plainly and tell them that their deeper fears are real, and then ask them to explain their terror for my own benefit. Kind of like you were saying, Oliver, about the nothing after death is just a scary thought. I would love to have a chat with you and hear more about why you think that. That's exactly what that was referring to. For my own benefit, and then hear my claims, which I hope may benefit them. Perhaps then we could both gain from a more honest and humane inquiry and inquisition, not that kind of inquisition, into facts than any civilized, perhaps then we could both gain from a more honest and humane inquiry and inquisition into facts than any civilized, restrained, or judicial discourse could provide. For my part, I am now prepared to lay my humble case before any who may care to hear. Gee, what a sentence. Could put me in the Lyceum, and sometimes my own writing makes me, you know. Okay, anything else? Okay, here we go. The next heading, opportunity, available light. This is again where it gets touchy-feely. I know there's a really touchy-feely section in here. I'm not sure where it is though. Mind is an instantiation of consciousness, formed of energy, organized within the brain along pathways designed of genetics and molded through the unique living of each individual. There's a sentence. So remember, what I'm saying is this is the available light. This is the concept of available light. Available light is this opportunity, these moments that we have when we're alive, when we can actually have the chance to, use our hands and feet and our brain to actually do something good. And I'm trying to describe here that mind instantiation, this thing that comes into existence, it's an instantiation of consciousness formed of energy. I'm just trying to see all the neural pathways in our brain energized through our food and consumption and the fuel of our bodies, designed of genetics, and molded through the unique living of each individual. So there's nature and nurture all right there, that all that forms together to create this one individual that we are. There is no soul in the sense of any transcendental or eternal. In the sense of anything. There is no soul in the sense of anything transcendental or eternal. That's a heavy sentence. I've got no evidence to back that up, other than the fact that I haven't found any evidence to back that up, to back up the opposite claim that there is. The fact that our materials and energy are everlasting, having been used by others before us and destined for reuse by the yet unborn, is testament to the fact that our person is temporary and ephemeral. So we are here for just a while. That's a fact. We are individually and collectively a brief, dim, and fast-fading spark and flash of material and energy in the darkening night of the universe. Wow. I like that one. I like that, not because it's my own writing. I like it because it captures that idea that, bang, we're here for a moment. Like I just suddenly, we're waking into this, what the hell? And then we're going to be here and fading again, that bell-shaped curve on the way down. Going to be out of here before I know it. Bam, we're going to be gone. In this fact, we discover both our dilemma and great potential. The challenge being to remain upright in the face of our utter, fleeting insignificance, while engaging whatever meek will we can muster towards observation, reflection, and art, while the light and sound of the universe wash across our senses. Or here we have that chance to stand upright, to be strong, to take courageous steps, to be bold in our decisions, and to move forward in that brief period of time when the light is coming across and washing through the senses. And how nice to have the sun just blasting through like that right now. Oh, isn't that great? Let's just move over a little bit. Let's enjoy that. Let's see a couple of comments here. We'll go. Did my computer die? That's it. It looks like the computer has gone dead. Battery went dead. Well, I guess that's a good enough time as any to stop. Somebody asked, the last comment that is the book popular? Not necessarily. I don't sell very many copies, but I'm not trying to market it very much either. So it's energy, what you put in and what you get out. Ooh, I like that sunrise right there. Might be if I try to market it more. Certainly it's popular in terms of giving it away. I give a lot of copies away. So marketing efforts will begin. I'm going to try to do more marketing in the future. I'll try to get it in more. It's in one bookstore. I'll try to get it in more bookstores. Mostly I'm still working on the editing, and I'm kind of involved with the second book as well, which is okay with me if I spend this time, these years writing the books and then spending later time trying to market it more. I will, the more important effort is to do the writing while the muse is speaking to me, and then the marketing, which is more like to say that word again, it's a more pedestrian, standard affair. I'll do that as time permits, or not. We'll see. The website. What's cool is that the website is all set up because the whole book's on the website. The website is set up as the self-funding mechanism now. So here's the website, which has the book and all the supplemental content, and here are the revenue streams: Amazon selling the book, YouTube revenue coming in. All that money from Amazon and YouTube filter into a central bank account that then feeds the website, right? It funds the website. So it's a self-perpetuating process. Now, of course, I know it won't last too long after I'm dead, but it's kind of neat to have that all set up on its own. And then whatever copies I get out there. But more importantly is just these videos. For whatever it's worth, I could be completely off base with all of these little ideas and suppositions. But if there is something in there that will help others to find a more meaningful life, as the life I found, which is quite meaningful and quite pleasant, then good. It's great. But now, of course, that leads us, you and me, both to hell in And then I'll offer you apology when I see you down there. And probably big finishing with a reference to hell is probably a good way to finish the video. I had an interesting talk with a friend this week. We were talking about that, and she's a Christian, and so we were talking about that very thought. And I mentioned that, that I would be in hell, because we were having, I can't remember the context of the conversation. I would be in hell, and she turned to me and she said, "But you don't believe in hell?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right." So it was interesting, because the concept of saying that I would go there was like trying to insert myself into her worldview. But when she reminded me that I don't believe it, and it didn't take it seriously. It's not like and it's not a fearful thing, because when I said that I'll be in hell, it's almost like saying, I'll be in Disneyland or something, or not. That's not a good example. It's like I'll be in Narnia or something like that, right? It's like talking about some fictitious thing that never really ever gets taken seriously. It's not a serious concern or even a serious thought in my mind. It's more like an entertaining, not even entertaining, because it concerns me, because so many people take it seriously and live under that constant threat in their lives. But then when she reminded me of that, "But you don't believe in it," and that's right, I don't believe in it, and so it's not something that I fear, and it's a great thing to be liberated of that, because when I was a believer, that was something I was afraid of, and it did color and influence my every decision in my very life, especially the idea of an afterlife, that there was a repository. I could build up a repository of a cache of meaning and goodness that I could cash in on at a later stage, and therefore not deal with the issues of the present life. And now that that's gone, that option's gone, that's made all the difference as well, because I deal with the things now. I don't let those things simply hold off for another life. I will be hiking in Siberia, where you film, in a week. You will? Hold on. Jaden, you're going to be in Siberia? Wow. Amazing. Well, when are you going to be there? I might be out there on Friday. Not that I... You're the going alone. Let's meet. Poetic, real. I love it. Oh, thank you. Don't fear the Reaper. This is such a good live stream. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. Anyway, that keeps going away. Jaden, if you're going to be in Siberia, send me an email. Softypapa at goingalone.org. SOFTYPAPA at goingalone, one word, .org. Like to talk to you about that, and it's an interesting prospect. Fascinating. You might be the first to go there, since I'm imagining that you may. Did you plan this as a result of hearing about it through me? If so, then you would be the first to do so, I believe. Anyway, yeah, and if you're coming through Los Angeles area, let me know. I've VIP trip with Kurt. Oh wow. It would. I have a regret. The regret is that sometimes folks come through the area, Los Angeles, and I let life get in the way of me meeting them. Most notably, a good friend of mine over the years, Black Cat, was here this summer, and I missed the chance to see him, and I really regret that. And one of my resolutions is that I won't miss that opportunity. If you're going to be in the area of Los Angeles, remember, Los Angeles is enormous, right? And it's all possible. Let me know. I would love to get together with you and have a coffee or a beer and chat. And with that, everybody, at 49 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Sorry I had to finish the chapter midstream, but hey, that's what happens sometimes, right? Okay. All right, everybody, you have a wonderful day. Make it a good life. And, well, that's how I usually end. Make it a good life. Take care until next month. Bye-bye.